You could live 30 more years after 65. I want you to really sit with that for a second. 30 more years. That is not a dream. That is not some fantasy reserved for the lucky few. That is science. That is what the human body is actually capable of when you give it the right tools, the right foods, and the right information. And today, I am going to give you one of the most powerful pieces of that puzzle. Something sitting quietly in your refrigerator right now that most diabetics have been told to fear, to avoid, to push off their plate. I'm talking about eggs. And if you are diabetic, or if someone you love is living with diabetes, what I'm about to share with you could genuinely change the trajectory of your health in ways you never expected. My name is Dr. Richard Ben, and welcome back to this channel. If you are new here, I want you to know that everything we talk about on this channel is grounded in real science, delivered in plain language, because your health is too important to be buried in jargon. Now, before we go any further, I need you to do me one favor. I need you to forget everything you think you know about eggs and diabetes, because for decades, we got this wrong. The medical community, the dietary guidelines, the well-meaning doctors sitting across from you in the examination room, many of them were working with incomplete information. And that incomplete information has been quietly hurting people who are already fighting one of the most complex conditions in modern medicine. So let's start from the very beginning, because the story of eggs and diabetes is not just a nutrition story. It is a story about fear, misinformation, and the incredible resilience of the human body. For years, and I mean decades, people with type 2 diabetes were told to stay away from eggs. The reasoning sounded logical on the surface. Eggs contain cholesterol. Cholesterol was believed to cause heart disease. People with diabetes already have a higher risk of heart disease. Therefore, eggs must be dangerous for diabetics. It seemed like a clean, straight line of logic. But here is the problem with straight lines in biology. The human body does not work in straight lines. And the moment researchers started looking more carefully at what eggs actually do inside the body of a person with diabetes, the whole narrative began to collapse. Let me tell you something that took the scientific world a long time to accept. The cholesterol you eat is not the same as the cholesterol in your blood. Your liver produces cholesterol on its own. When you eat more cholesterol from food, your liver compensates by producing less. The relationship is dynamic. It is not a simple equation where more eggs equals more cholesterol in your arteries. That old belief has been overturned by study after study, and yet the fear lingers. And that fear has been keeping diabetics away from one of the most nutrient-dense, blood sugar-friendly foods on the planet. Now I want to talk about what diabetes actually does to your body, because you cannot understand why eggs matter without understanding the condition itself. When you have type 2 diabetes, your cells have become resistant to insulin. Insulin is the key that unlocks your cells and allows glucose, blood sugar, to enter and be used for energy. When that key stops working properly, glucose builds up in your bloodstream. And high blood glucose over time damages blood vessels, nerves, kidneys, eyes, and the heart. Managing blood sugar is not just about feeling better in the moment. It is about protecting every single organ system in your body over the long term. It is about being alive and functional at 75, at 80, at 90. It is about those 30 more years I mentioned at the start. So here is the critical question for any food when you are diabetic. What does it do to your blood sugar? And this is where eggs become genuinely remarkable. Eggs have virtually zero carbohydrates. A large egg contains less than 1 gram of carbohydrate. Zero. That means eating eggs does not spike your blood sugar. It does not trigger an insulin response the way bread, rice, fruit juice, or even many so-called healthy foods do. For someone managing diabetes, that is not a small thing. That is everything. Because every time your blood sugar spikes, you are putting stress on your pancreas, stressing your blood vessels, and accelerating the complications of the disease. But eggs do not just avoid raising blood sugar, they actively help stabilize it. And the reason for this is protein. A large egg contains about 6 grams of high-quality complete protein, meaning it contains all 9 essential amino acids your body cannot make on its own. When you eat protein, your body digests it slowly. It creates a steady, sustained release of energy. It keeps you full for hours. And critically, it slows down the absorption of any other carbohydrates you might eat at the same meal. So if you eat eggs alongside a small portion of toast, the eggs are actually cushioning the blood sugar impact of that toast. The protein acts like a brake on the glucose response. This is something that happens in real time in your body every time you eat eggs. And then there is fat. Now, I know the word fat makes a lot of people nervous, especially when we are talking about heart health and diabetes. But again, I need you to stay with me here, because the science has moved significantly on dietary fat. The fat in eggs is predominantly unsaturated, including healthy oleic acid, the same type of fat found in olive oil. Yes, eggs contain some saturated fat, but the research now shows that in the context of a whole food, the saturated fat in eggs behaves very differently than the saturated fat found in processed meats or fried foods. The fat in eggs, combined with the protein and the rich array of micronutrients, creates a food matrix that your body processes in a uniquely beneficial way. Let me talk about those micronutrients for a moment, because this is where eggs genuinely become a superfood for diabetics. Eggs are one of the richest natural sources of choline, a nutrient that most people have never even heard of. Choline is critical for liver function, and this matters enormously for diabetics because the liver plays a central role in glucose regulation. When your liver is healthy, it manages glucose production and storage efficiently. Choline also supports brain health, nerve function, and cell membrane integrity. Most people, diabetic or not, are not getting enough choline, and eggs are one of the easiest ways to address that deficiency. Eggs are also rich in lutein and zeaxanthin, 2 antioxidants that are particularly concentrated in the yolk. These antioxidants are extraordinary protectors of eye health. And I want you to pay attention to this, because diabetic retinopathy, damage to the blood vessels in the eye caused by high blood sugar, is one of the leading causes of blindness in the world. Regular consumption of lutein and zeaxanthin has been shown to reduce the risk of macular degeneration and protect the delicate structures of the eye. If you are diabetic and you are eating eggs regularly, you are feeding your eyes the exact nutrients they need to resist the damage that diabetes can cause. Beyond that, eggs contain vitamin B12, which supports nerve health. Diabetic neuropathy, nerve damage that causes tingling, numbness, and pain, usually starting in the feet, is another devastating complication of the disease. Vitamin B12 is essential for the maintenance of the myelin sheath, the protective coating around your nerves. Many diabetics are also taking metformin, one of the most commonly prescribed diabetes medications, and metformin is well known to deplete B12 over time. So if you are on metformin and you are not eating eggs or supplementing B12, there is a real chance your nerve protection is being quietly eroded. Eggs also contain vitamin D, selenium, iron, zinc, and a full spectrum of B vitamins, including riboflavin and folate. These are not incidental nutrients. They are the building blocks of energy metabolism, immune function, and cellular repair. For a diabetic body that is working overtime to manage a complex metabolic condition, these nutrients are not a luxury. They are a necessity. Now, let me get very specific and practical with you, because the how matters just as much as the what. Eating eggs correctly when you are diabetic is not complicated, but there are some important things to understand. The first thing I want to address is the yolk. For a long time, people were throwing away the yolk and eating only the egg white in the name of reducing cholesterol. I want to be very clear. This is one of the most nutritionally wasteful things you can do with an egg. The yolk is where the vast majority of the nutrition lives. The choline, the lutein, the zeaxanthin, the vitamins D and A, the healthy fats, all of it is in the yolk. The egg white is mostly protein, and while protein is important, eating egg whites alone means you are stripping away the most powerful parts of the food. Unless you have been specifically advised by your personal physician to avoid yolks for a documented medical reason specific to your individual case, eat the whole egg. The second thing I want to talk about is cooking method, and this is something people dramatically underestimate. How you cook an egg changes its nutritional impact and its effect on your body. The best methods for diabetics are boiling, poaching, and scrambling with minimal or no added fat. Hard-boiled eggs are perhaps the most convenient and blood sugar-friendly option you can possibly choose. You can cook them in advance, store them in the refrigerator, and grab one as a snack at any moment. A hard-boiled egg has zero blood sugar impact, provides sustained satiety, and delivers the full nutritional payload of the egg. It is, in many ways, the perfect diabetic snack. Poached eggs are wonderful because you are cooking them entirely in water. No added oils, no fats from the cooking process, just the pure nutrition of the egg. Scrambled eggs are excellent when you cook them in a small amount of heart-healthy fat like extra virgin olive oil or even a touch of butter from grass-fed cows. What you want to avoid is frying eggs in large amounts of refined vegetable oils, sunflower oil, corn oil, canola oil at very high heat. These oils, when heated, can produce oxidized compounds that are inflammatory, and inflammation is already a serious issue in the diabetic body. You also want to be very careful about what you are eating alongside your eggs. This is where so many diabetics inadvertently undermine the benefit of their eggs. If you are eating 2 perfectly cooked boiled eggs and then washing them down with a glass of orange juice and a plate of white toast, you have just created a significant blood sugar spike. The eggs themselves were not the problem, the company they were keeping was. The ideal companions for eggs when you are diabetic are non-starchy vegetables. Think spinach, kale, tomatoes, bell peppers, mushrooms, zucchini, asparagus. A vegetable omelet made with 2 or 3 eggs, filled with sautéed spinach and mushrooms cooked in olive oil, is one of the most powerful blood sugar stabilizing meals a diabetic can eat. Add half an avocado on the side, and you have a meal that will keep your blood sugar remarkably stable for 4 to 5 hours. Now, how many eggs should a diabetic eat? This is one of the most commonly asked questions I receive, and I want to give you a real answer rather than a vague one. Current research suggests that eating up to 2 eggs per day is safe and beneficial for most people with type 2 diabetes. Some studies have looked at even higher consumption without finding negative effects on cardiovascular markers in diabetics. But 2 eggs per day is a solid, well-supported target for most people. If you have been eating no eggs at all out of fear, starting with 1 egg per day and gradually increasing to 2 is a perfectly reasonable approach. If you already have established heart disease in addition to diabetes, please have a specific conversation with your doctor about your individual situation, because the intersection of those 2 conditions may call for more personalized guidance. mass. I also want to speak to timing, because when you eat eggs matters for blood sugar management. Eating eggs at breakfast is particularly powerful. There is a phenomenon in diabetes called the dawn effect, or dawn phenomenon, where blood sugar naturally rises in the early morning hours due to hormones like cortisol and growth hormone that prepare your body to wake up. This makes the morning a vulnerable time for blood sugar spikes. Eating a protein and fat-rich breakfast centered around eggs can counteract this by preventing a sharp rise in blood sugar. People who eat high-protein breakfasts, including eggs, consistently show better blood sugar control throughout the entire day compared to people who eat high-carbohydrate breakfasts or skip breakfast altogether. There was a clinical study, and I want to share this with you because it is so compelling, that followed a group of people with type 2 diabetes who consumed 2 eggs per day for 12 weeks. At the end of the study, their fasting blood glucose had not worsened. Their HDL cholesterol, the good kind, had actually increased. Their LDL particle size had shifted toward the larger, less dangerous pattern, and their markers of inflammation had not increased. This is directly contradicting the old fear that eggs would make diabetes worse. The evidence, when you look at it carefully, points in the opposite direction. Let me also spend a moment talking about the egg yolk and its relationship to insulin sensitivity, because this is a newer area of research that I find absolutely fascinating. The choline in egg yolks has been shown in emerging research to support the health of the cell membrane, and cell membrane health is directly related to how effectively insulin receptors on the surface of your cells can respond to insulin. In other words, the nutrition inside an egg yolk may actually support the very mechanism that is broken in type 2 diabetes. Improving insulin sensitivity, even modestly, is one of the most powerful things a diabetic can do for long-term health. And eggs, through multiple mechanisms, appear to support rather than undermine that process. Now, I want to talk about something that does not get discussed enough in the context of diabetes, and that is muscle mass. Diabetes and muscle loss are deeply connected. High blood sugar over time damages the ability of your body to build and maintain muscle tissue. And losing muscle mass is catastrophic for blood sugar control because your muscles are the primary site where glucose gets used and stored. When you have less muscle, your glucose has fewer places to go, and blood sugar rises. Preserving and building muscle mass is one of the most effective long-term strategies for managing type 2 diabetes, and it requires adequate protein. Eggs, with their complete amino acid profile and high biological availability, are one of the best protein sources for supporting muscle maintenance in an aging diabetic body. And I want to come back to something I said at the very beginning because it is important enough to say again. You could live 30 more years after 65. The choices you make at the grocery store, at the breakfast table, in your kitchen, they compound over time. Every meal is a vote for the version of yourself you want to be at 75, at 80, at 90. Every time you reach for a nutrient-dense whole food, like an egg, instead of a highly processed, blood sugar spiking alternative, you are casting a vote for longevity. You are telling your body, I am taking care of you. And your body, incredibly, responds. Blood sugar becomes easier to manage. Energy improves. Nerve health is supported. Eye health is protected. Muscle is preserved. Inflammation is reduced. These are not small things. These are the differences between a life full of vitality and a life defined by decline. I want to leave you with some very practical takeaways that you can implement starting today. First, stop being afraid of eggs. The fear was built on incomplete science, and the evidence now strongly supports eggs as a beneficial food for diabetics when eaten correctly. Second, eat the whole egg. The yolk is where the medicine is. Third, favor cooking methods like boiling, poaching, and scrambling in minimal healthy fats. Fourth, pair your eggs with non-starchy vegetables and avoid pairing them with high glycemic foods like white bread, juice, or sugary condiments. Fifth, Aim for 1 to 2 eggs per day as a consistent part of your nutrition strategy. Sixth, consider the timing. Eggs at breakfast can help stabilize your blood sugar for the entire day. And seventh, remember that eggs are not a standalone solution. They are part of a larger approach to managing diabetes that includes movement, stress management, sleep, and ongoing monitoring of your blood glucose levels. If this video has given you a new perspective, if it has relieved some of the anxiety you may have been carrying around about a food that was actually working in your favor all along, then please share it with someone who needs to hear this. Share it with a friend who has diabetes. Share it with a parent or a sibling who is struggling, because the information gap around nutrition and diabetes is enormous. And every person who gets the right information is a person who has a better shot at those extra years. My name is Dr. Richard Ben. I make these videos because I believe that knowledge is medicine and that you deserve the best, most honest, most up-to-date information available. If you found value in this video, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment below telling me your experience with eggs as a diabetic. I read every single comment. And subscribe so that you never miss the next video. Because on this channel, we are not just talking about surviving with diabetes. We are talking about thriving past it, living fully, living long, and doing it.